good morning again. This is the Sunday after a mission trip, and we're really lucky that I'm upright and standing here right now. Thankfully, there's a table I can lean against, and it's all good. And I will be honest with you, on the Sunday after a mission trip, in fact, this past week, the last thing that was on my mind was, what do I preach for a sermon on Sunday morning? Really, that was the last thing on my mind. But I will tell you this, it's because there were sermons being preached all over the place. The youth that went on the mission trip really were sharing their lives and who they are, their faith and their love of Jesus with everyone in the Thomas, wait, what is it? What was it? Lexington and, was it Thomasville? Okay, you guys are going to have to fill in some blanks for me, all right? So there are enough of you here that you can do that. So it was Lexington and Thomasville, and that's where we were helping people this past week. There are some statistics that I want to share with you, if you would show them. Keith, thank you. So statistics, we had 76 campers at our site. Now, this is one of the smallest camps that we've ever been at. A completely filled camp has 440 campers at it. We have been to camps with 100 to 200, 250, those kinds of camps. This is the smallest camp we've ever been at, but I will say this, there are advantages to having a very small camp. One of them is you don't have to wait in line for cold showers. It's really kind of good. What's that? Oh, thank you, Sunday school.
Long trip.
It's been a long trip. Did they all leave? Lisa's got it. Lisa will take care of it. It's time for Sunday school, sorry. Hey, are you coming back, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, don't forget Abby.
Yes.
Okay, good. You know, it's always good when you start your sermon and then you take a break and say people can leave, that no adults leave. It's really, really kind of a promising thing, right? Although I did notice Lisa leaving. I checked the office for that sofa to see if she's down there at all. It was one of those things. So we had 76 campers, and I said this is one of the smaller camps that we've been at. But it was still a really, really good time for us. And I said, you don't have to stand in line for cold showers. And, you know, it's good when you have low expectations on a mission trip, isn't it? Low expectations on a mission trip. Because the guys had to walk to their showers, you know, they had to prop the door open, otherwise they'd get locked out. Which, you know, every night I considered maybe doing that just for fun. But that was not, you know, I didn't. We've always said what happens on a mission trip stays on a mission trip, right? We had 76 campers. There were 4 churches, 3 states. 3 states were Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. So we had 4 churches from those 3 states. We had 13 crews and 12 work sites. And I and Eric, who else was on the double crew? If you were on the double crew, raise your hand. Yeah, so a few of us are here that were on the double crew. So we had 13 crews, 12 work sites, 9 projects were completed. That's really a high percentage. So this was really good, hardworking youth that we had on this trip. Also, there were 311 canned goods collected that were left there in the community of Lexington. So we're thankful for that as well. Now, I do have to tell you this, that the Walmart in Lexington doesn't have any more blankets because we were so cold sleeping. I mean, cold. How many of you were cold sleeping? Yeah, and I will tell you this, I'm older and have some arthritis issues. It was brutally cold. Yeah, so we had to stop on Wednesday and get blankets so we could sleep, but still in all, how many of you would go on the next mission trip? Yeah. So in spite of all of the kinds of things that you have to get through and get over, we still want to go because it's still a good trip. The 2 lessons that I picked for today were, one of them was the lesson that they used, and the other one was a lesson, they used it also, but we used it here for our sending service as well. The theme of the camp this year was Go Serve. And the whole point of a Christian life is that we are given the gifts we have so that we might use them to serve others. And then we talk about love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And a piece of that loving is not necessarily an emotion. A piece of the loving is making sure that other people's needs are met, the same as our needs are met. Now you might not think, well, come on, do they need to have their house painted? You know, the woman where we served, it had been 30 years since her house was painted. And there was no way she was going to get it done herself, and there was no way she could afford to do it. And so we were there painting it for her. Now you may say, well, I don't know if that's Jesus in action. Well, while we were there painting her house, we got to know her, and we got to love her, and she got to love us in return. And so these mission trips are a lot more than doing work. These mission trips are about getting to know the people where we serve and getting to love them, but we get to show Jesus' love to them, and that's an incredible thing as well. So with the mission trip and Go Serve, what I'm going to do, this is where I'm seasoned as a pastor. Notice I didn't say old. I'm seasoned as a pastor. So all of you who went on the mission trip, I want you to come up here and stand behind me. So we're all here in force. And then anyone who wants to, today we're just going to talk about our residents. All right, we'll talk about our residents. In September, we will have a thank you luncheon. All right, we'll have a thank you luncheon in September, and these youth will tell you things. Well, maybe let's do this. You can talk about your resident, or talk about something that, what did I say the other night? Something that you are taking with you, something that you're leaving behind, or something that you learned, all right? So you can do either one or both. That's okay, but we're not going to keep these folks until like 3 in the afternoon. Please know, I will cut them off. Yeah, so whoever wants to start, how about if we start with Celia? You want to start? And then, come on up, Ryan, if you don't have to, if you don't want to. Everybody know that. You don't have to if you don't want to. If you want to, come up to the microphone. I'm going to sit down and listen.
I learned on this mission trip that there's like many ways to serve. My resident had just lost her husband, and so I learned how we were serving her emotionally and like physically.
And I have to add to that. When you say, I'm just going to pop up an ad whenever I feel like it, because I'm in charge here, right? So when you say just lost her husband, when did her husband pass away?
Oh, I think it was Saturday.
Yeah, the day before we got there. They just got there, and she still had them come out and be a part and welcome them. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted them to know that.
Our resident was Mr. Baker, and he loved our work so much. The crew worked really, really hard, and he loved our work so much that he gave us a lot of extra credit projects. So we had to hang up, we had to put a 120-foot fence up. That was one of our projects. We had to do a lot of painting too. So by the time we were done, I was going to make a list. There were probably 10 projects the team completed in addition to our painting and our fence. And the team hung a 112-foot of fence on the last day. So they did a fantastic job.
My resident, midway through the week, she wouldn't really invite us in for devotions, but her daughter, like her whole entire family lived down the street, so her daughter came to our work site, and so then she did devotions with us, and then after that, we met her son Lyle, and we did devotions inside her house, which was
Our resident was like really cool. She was like super nice, and after a few days, she came out for devotions with her family, and she was super interested and like always wanted to talk. It was just cool to see.
So my resident was Miss Mary Thomas. She was really great, and she would, whenever we pulled up on the bus coming to get to the stop, she's always sitting on the front porch waiting for us every single morning. So the first 2 days that we had devotions and like our lunch, we would be on her front porch, and she would join us. And then when we got there Wednesday, she told us that after we left Tuesday, she had cleared off and like cleaned up the picnic table that she had never used in her backyard. So that we could sit there. And one of my favorite moments was, so on Tuesday, when we were kind of working on our house, the neighborhood was super nice. They were always waving and like talking to us. And there was one husband and wife that pulled up in their car, rolled down their windows, and immediately was just like, "Are you guys from a church?" And like started talking to us and asking these questions, and they thanked us for everything we did. And so Wednesday, when we were eating at that picnic table with Mary, we had like told her about the husband and wife and like described them to her. And she's kind of answered some questions, and she said that if we were thinking of the same people, it was that couple that gifted her the picnic table. And so it's just a really interesting moment that we talked about how nice the community was and how everything fit together. It's just really special.
My residents were Tammy and Dale. And so first day we knock on the door and Dale comes out, and he uses a cane. And so our job was to build 2 porches for them. And so Dale was talking about how he didn't really want the help, like he kind of had to be like pushed into like allowing us to come through the organization that put on this work. And so he said like he had been in a bad accident. He was in a wheelchair for a while, and he got up to the point where now he's using a cane. And so he's like, I've been trying so hard to do all of this work, and I just can't. And so we were able to help him with that. And Tammy was super sweet. Every day she bought us out Gatorades and sodas and waters, and like she bought us pizza. Tammy and Dale bought us pizza for lunch one of the days because they wouldn't let us say no. And they kept on offering to do stuff like that. And on the last day, it was super hot, but they gave us popsicles. And so they were all both super sweet.
So I'm not going to talk about my resident, I'm going to talk about what I took away from the trip. What I took away from the trip, and I'm going to take a minute to like brag about the people behind me and the people that aren't here with us. But these great kids are wise among, like, beyond their years. Sitting in devotions every night, waking up with them every day. You just see 16, 17, 18 years old, and their connection with God and their connection with their families in this place is incredible.
Okay, so I learned 2 things this mission trip. One is I am really, really bad at using a circular saw. And third thing for Tatum. And number 2 is that everyone, no matter where they come from, who they are, they all have a story. You just have to provide the right environment and the right means to have them be able to tell it. And I lose my voice very easily.
I took 2 things away from this mission trip. One is listen for the nudges. God and Jesus are always pushing different things into your life, and you may not notice it at the time, but eventually you will see it. And the second thing is relationships really, really matter. My resident can't get out of the house very much anymore, and so having 6 of us hanging out with him all day, he sat out in his front yard watching us the entire time, and then on the last day, we did not spray each other. None of my crew was here. So we had the hose out, and we were spraying each other, and on the last day, we were cleaning up, and he almost was frightened that we weren't spraying each other. He thought that we were not having enough fun.
So I learned on this trip that I'm very, very good at using a circular saw. So me and Matthew were on the same crew, if you didn't realize. But our resident, his name was Steve, and he had fibromyalgia, and so walking and moving around was super painful for him. So our job on our piece of paper said that we were painting the inside of his house. So we were very excited that we were not outside. Until we got there, and then we realized we're also building a new deck for him. So then we were outside. So we did both of those, but he was just one of the most giving people I've ever met in my whole life. Because every day he truly was in so much pain, but he'd always come out, see how we were. When we got there, he was like, you know, I have 3 cases of water in the fridge for you. I bought you Lunchables, like cheese sticks. Like he just had everything we could have wanted. He also had lots of cats. He had lots of cats that he was like, please come in, pet them. But just one of the kindest people you will ever meet. Even though, like, you know, we were coming into his house, which is not always the most comfortable situation for people, but he made us feel like we were home, and it was just super wonderful to see.
So one of the things that I took away from this was all the people and the great community that we share with each other. And our resident used to be a country singer, and like she showed us like all his pictures and stuff, and it was really great. Like one of the things that we talked about one day at our program was making people feel welcome in their own home, and I feel like a lot of us did that with our residents. So my resident was Mr. Baker, and he was kind of shy the first day, but then he started to open up and he started to give us more tasks. And so this past week I had a multitask because I'm pretty sure we had 10 projects at once. But you could just see the joy on his face as we completed each and every one of those projects. And I think I learned to be grateful for the little things because that's what he did the whole week.
Okay, so my resident's name was Dawn, and she's in her late 50s and getting both of her knees replaced soon. So we were going her a wheelchair ramp. And the first thing I kind of noticed about her was just how happy she was to see us. And we went inside her house, and her house is filled with Bible quotes and filled with flowers. And you can just tell how close she is to God. And so on Tuesday, she brought us inside her home, and she said that God spoke to her last night. And she stood up in front of us. She said it's not something she usually does. And she told us her whole life story and everything that she had gone through in her life. And then she went around the room to each and every one of us, and she told us who we resemble from the Bible and who what traits that we resemble. And it was just really powerful, and all of us were crying, and she was just the sweetest, and she really touched all of our hearts. So, yes.
My resident's name was Elsie, and then her mom's name was Essie. She lived right next door. So after the first day, we kind of just all sat in front of her mom's house, and we kind of just talked to her, and she talked to us about how, since her and her mom lived next to each other, her uncle used to live in the house next to that house, and how her family owned a lot of the land. And I just thought it was really cool that she wanted to tell us about that.
So I was also on the crew with lots of tasks, and on the last day, you could just tell how happy they were. And one of our residents' friends was crying, and she was like, "It means so much that you guys are here," and how us serving them gives them so much hope for the future, which was really cool to hear. And I also learned how to use lots of power tools thanks to Ryan.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about my resident a little bit. So our resident's name is Mary. She lived by herself. She lived by herself. She said that she helped raise her grandson and one of her other sons that lived with her. And it was just her. So I'm going to show kind of two perspectives that she kind of gave me that I thought were really cool. I'll definitely take away from this trip. So the first day, she definitely wasn't as outside as much as my other residents. She was definitely a little bit more to herself. But when you did get to talk to her, she was super open. So that was really cool. So two of the big things I took away from her were, the first thing she said, she had a lot of plants and stuff, and you could tell she loved working outside. She had an apple tree, and she had a peach tree also, but it was dying, or it had died a while ago. And she was telling me and one of my crewmates that the peach tree had died because the squirrels had been eating all the peaches before she could get to them. And instead of complaining about how the peach tree had died and how the squirrels were messing up her yard, she said, "They're God's people too, they gotta eat, right?" And I just thought that was really cool because I feel with that kind of thing, you could take that in a really negative way, but in her way she thought of it as she was helping feed God's people. because so they're God's people too. So I thought that was just a cool little like takeaway. And the second thing that she told me that I thought was really cool was, her husband passed away in like 2011, and I think her son also passed away like 3 years later or something like that. I don't know the exact timeline. But she was talking to me and my crewmate about this in that same conversation. And she said that people were telling her like, oh, like your chapter's done, like what do you even do? Like your son's gone, your husband's gone, like you have these grandchildren you have to raise by yourself, like your chapter's over. And she said, my chapter's not over yet, I'm just getting started. I thought that was really cool because when things happen like this, like when those things happen in our lives, you can either like turn away and say like I'm done, like I'm not sure I'm going to do ever again, or you can take that as it's a new opportunity and it's a new chapter in your life. So I just thought that was cool that instead of being like, because she was older too, and you could tell like she couldn't move around as well as much. So instead of being like, oh yeah, I'm done, like I'll help my grandchildren somewhere else, she said, my chapter's not done yet, I'm just getting started. So I just thought that was really cool.
All right, I'm going to share two things that I took away from this trip. Well, first of all, I want to say Peyton and I were on the same crew, and we had an amazing resident. Her name was Shirley. But I want to kind of speak on all the residents. One of the takeaways for me this year was how much, how welcoming they were to even allow us to come to their homes. So if the residents don't say yes, we will accept the help. We don't have a work camp. So it really made an impact on me this year for the first, I think, just how they are really loving and serving us to allow them to come and serve them. None of these kids or myself would have this experience without them. So that was a big realization for me. The other one, I know this every year it happens, but I worry. I say, oh my gosh, our seniors are going to college, and what's going to happen to our youth group? And I'm going to miss our seniors so much. But I got to meet our freshman kids and how amazing they are, and it gives me hope for our youth group. It gives me hope for the future. Again, I just have to say, this community is blessed to have such amazing young people. So, that's my
Sit down now if you like. What I wanted you to hear is that mission trips are about building and painting and all of those kinds of things, but the first goal of a mission trip is relationship. Relationship with our youth group, relationship with our residents, relationship with God. It's very, very important for us about building those kinds of relationships, and that we teach our youth how we build those relationships as well. So once again, just an awesome mission trip, and a good way to serve. And I do have to say that we had words that we used. What was one was freedom, humility, gratitude, purpose. Thank you. Yes. And so we learned those 4 things, and they just kind of built on each other. By the end of the week, you really felt like you had an understanding of what God's freedom is. All right? God's freedom, not worldly freedom, what God's freedom is. And what gratitude is and what it means for us. I think a lot of us took a lot away from gratitude. And what our purpose is, what our real purpose is as Christians and lovers of Jesus Christ. And then also what it means to be humble as you do that. These folks need to humble themselves. We think that it takes 2 years, sometimes 3, to get a mission trip set in place in a particular area. And we've heard that most of that time it is convincing people to allow us into their home. Because they have pride, like any of us do. And many of them explain to us the reason why they finally said yes. And you know, we just want to be there helping them out, but then we come to realize that we have to build a strong relationship with them because we're not there to put them down. And we're not there to say that they're in some kind of trouble and need our help. We just want to say, hey, we got a week, we're here to help you. And we love doing that. So it's very healing. In fact, how many of you, and I'm going to just say this, how many of you, if somebody came to your house and said, we've got a crew of 5 teenagers and 1 adult who will paint your house for free. Yeah, I gotta tell you, I've seen my work. I wouldn't paint my own house, quite honestly. But yes, so some of you did say that you would, and it's because you understand there's more to this than, but because we have the resources, we are able to do these kinds of things. And so mission trips are just a blessing. We had so we had 44 of us go on the trip. Bob, the bus driver, and his wife Celeste have been with us for all but one, I think, trip that we've been on. And they're always welcome with us, but we took someone else with us this year, and it was incredible. If you would show that last slide. We took Jesus with us this year. Now, we understand that as we were making our trip home, this was Jesus take the wheel, because we wanted safe travels along the way. But I will tell you this, you will see pictures later on of everywhere that Jesus was. I hate to say this, but I will say this, Jesus was really taking care of us during the week, but during the day, Jesus was kind of a slacker. So, you know, he would just go from one bed to the next and sleep all day long while we were out. But then we recognized that, you know, Jesus was walking among us all night long. So he could sleep all day long as well. The last thing I want to tell you is that it's amazing. I never thought there was a time change between here and North Carolina. Eric convinced me at one point that we went through a time change. And I was believing him. But here's the time change. I just have to tell you this. Here's the time change. There is regular time, and then there's mission trip time. All right? Lights out, we're at 11 o'clock. That's regular time. Mission trip time, well, who knows? It could be midnight, it could be 1 o'clock, it could be, that's mission trip time. And then you sleep and you get wakey in the morning and you feel exhausted, but you still get up and you go at it. So I just want to commend the youth and adults who went on the mission trip. I highly recommend if you ever have the opportunity to go along. You can always volunteer to Lisa. We are limited in the numbers of adults we can take with us, but mission trips we are allowed to take probably more than normal. I mean, normal adults, yes, but more than normal numbers, okay? So, we've been blessed. God has taught us how to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And we've also been nudged into learning how to go serve in major projects, but more importantly than that, in just simply, I don't know who said it, giving people the opportunity to tell their story.